We're going to go through a Tottenham update as Ange has been speaking in his press conference about the potential business Spurs might be doing or might not be doing in the transfer window in the last couple of days. And he says, unlikely on both fronts in terms of incomings and outgoings. Without ruling anything out, I don't see any incomings. Outgoings is a little bit different as I'm not really engaged with that. Unlikely on both fronts without ruling anything out. So he's saying he can't really see any more incomings or outgoings.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me. It's 2 days left to the window. Our primary target for the end of the window was Nusa, and obviously that's not going to happen, which we'll talk about later. So unless there's another deal that could be done in terms of a signing, which we loan back to their parent club with the view of bringing them next season, which even at this point I see as unlikely, there's definitely no one signing to be ready for January. I think that's pretty conclusive at this point. I think the Højbjerg news yesterday put to bed any of that news. So, I mean, it's no shock, really, is it? We've done a couple of transfers. I think I think the squad's in a good place. I don't think there's too much to complain about massively in the short term. Obviously, long term, we definitely have some issues we need to rectify. But I think to go for the squad we have from now to the end of the season, I don't think Andrew's going to be tearing his hair out about that.
Yeah, I agree. I said it yesterday on the panel. You know, I'm very hopeful and positive about the way, in the direction the club is going. I think that we did good business this January transfer window so far, bringing in Timo Werner to bolster that front line, and also Dragusin, who we desperately needed in terms of a centre back option. So, yeah, look, I probably would, in an ideal world, like one more maybe in the front line or midfield. But with Højbjerg staying, that probably rules out the midfielder. I would still like one more probably in the front line if Hill was to leave. And even if Hill was to stay, I don't think he's going to get too much of a look in from now to the end of the season.
In terms of numbers, though, we're okay, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. We are okay in terms of numbers. I think we're one short of a full squad in terms of the numbers of the squad. But with only Premier League football left to play from now to the end of the season, it's not too much of an issue.
Exactly. I think long term, obviously, there are players in the squad who definitely need upgrading or replacing. I think players like Emerson, Højbjerg, potentially in the front line as well. Maybe Richarlison, but obviously he's doing well at the moment. I think these are long term things, but how they're going in the short term, you know, Ange has only had them again for 7 months as well. So who knows, come the end of the season, how we'll be thinking about certain players maybe in a different light. So, and obviously we're going well in the league, and we're getting players back from injury who've been missing for a lot of the season as well. So there's reasons to think we're going to get better. I don't think we've maxed out everything this squad has to give because of those injuries. So I'm still very excited, and as much as I think every team wants another one, you know what I mean? I think no one thinks their team has the perfect squad or anything. I think in an ideal world, everyone will want to bring in another transfer. I'm just happy with where our squad is at the moment, where the project is. I think we've got a good squad for the time being.
Yeah, 6 months under Ange, you know, the team looks completely different from this time to a year ago. So look, we're going in the right direction, that's for sure. But also, you've got to take into account all these players returning back from injury, all these players coming back from the AFCON and the Asia Cup as well pretty soon. Pape Sarr, which we'll get onto a bit later, should be back for the next game. Bissouma and Heung-min Son will be back in the next couple of weeks as well. At the very most, 3 weeks' time for both of them, or even less. So, we're in a good place. But let's get into the nitty-gritty and let's see all the rumours going round at the moment. We're going to start off with a very interesting development in the Antonio Nusa saga, as David Ornstein broke last night that Brentford's proposed signing of Antonio Nusa from Club Brugge has been thrown into doubt by some complications in the deal. The transfer has not yet been finalised and appears to have taken a backwards step, potentially opening the door to a late push by other teams. Sasha Tavaleri gave us more insight into that, and he says Nusa failed his Brentford medical yesterday. They discovered cartilage issues in his knee and persistent back issues which need managing, and Ben Jacobs says that Brentford's deal for Antonio Nusa is now almost certainly off. Reason is due to knee and back issues during the medical. It's understood that the knee issue is potentially quite serious, so it looks like we've kind of dodged a bullet on this one, and it's really worrying for him.
Yeah, I feel awful for him. It must be devastating, because obviously he commanded a big fee, you know, for an 18-year-old, 37 million euros, I think it was, and it was going to be a big fee for him, a big Premier League move. So to have that scuppered for him, especially when he's playing so well, and he was talked about as one of the biggest talents at the moment around Europe, to have this come to light, obviously he must have known about some complications himself within his own body, but must be absolutely gutting. So I feel really bad for him. I don't know whether in the future it just means he might get a move for a lesser fee. So I wouldn't rule out. Doesn't mean he's never going to play in the Premier League ever. But obviously, talk of a big fee for him at the moment is definitely something that's not going to be happening. Considering that, in terms of Tottenham having dodged a bullet, it looks to be the case. Obviously, we didn't do a medical, so we would have. I'm sure if Spurs did a medical, that also would have come to light, and then we would have not gone ahead with the signing. So I don't think it's a case of Tottenham would have signed him, and then these complications would have appeared. But it just goes to show that you never really know about a player truly until everything's said and done, and he's signed, and everything's there for all to see, because everyone was so excited about him. Everyone was like desperate for Spurs to sign him, us included, and now all these things are coming to light. And I'd wonder what the future holds for him now, given this news. I wonder if it's going to scare off a lot of clubs in the future. But from Tottenham's point of view, not committing to a big fee now and with these issues appearing seems like the right decision, and hopefully we can move on and go for someone else. But I'm gutted for Nusa, and hopefully it doesn't hold him back too much.
Yeah, let's hope so. I mean, I guess you never know what's going to happen in the future, but hopefully, because he's so young, he can get over these kind of injuries sooner rather than later. But yeah, it doesn't seem good for the lad, and hopefully, like I said, he can get over them. But in terms of other potential incomings, it looks as though Spurs are focusing on young players to join the academy. And we're going to talk about Rooney Bardghji first, as Simon Jones of the Mail says that Spurs remain in the market for a young winger, and Rooney Bardghji of Copenhagen is one who has impressed the staff at the club. Apparently he's one as well that had a trial at Spurs a year or so ago and did impress them, but we didn't take him on for some reason or another.
I don't think he'd be to join the academy, though. I know he's young, but he's been playing Champions League football this season for Copenhagen.
For Copenhagen, yeah.
And he scored against Man United in the Champions League as well, in their victory at home, I think, in the 4-3 win. So I think he's a player who's been really impressing this season. I do think he would be similar to kind of the Nusa deal. Sign him, loan him back, with a view of being part of the first team, I would assume, next season. He's a really tricky winger. He's been really impressing. I was impressed with him in the Champions League. I've spoken about him before. So if he's the next one in line, if obviously he's, again, a good dribbler, I think it could definitely be one that we definitely have a keen eye on. But again, a lot of eyes are on him at the moment around Europe, because he's playing very well. Yeah,
18 years of age. I'm not sure if he comes in straight away to the first team squad, but we'll have to wait and see. I mean, I hope we do kind of push the button on these kind of players, because I like the idea of getting, the up-and-coming next year's talents, and I do want to kind of complement them with players that can come in here and now and hit the ground running. But with, Bardghji, 3 games in the Champions League this season, 1 goal, 17 games in the league, 7 goals. So he is a player that's playing really well at the moment. He's got an interesting background. He was actually born in Kuwait City. He's got citizenship with Sweden and Syria, and comes through the Sweden ranks in terms of international football. He's played in the under-17s and the under-21s without having a senior appearance yet. So very interesting background for Bardghji, and hopefully we can go get him over the line.
Yeah, but I think it would be a really good signing. 100%. I think he's one who's really exploding. 7 goals in top men's football, even for an 18-year-old, is very impressive. Especially, scoring in the Champions League as well. I think a lot of people have been talking about him. So, and he's got a great name, Rooney. Yeah, he's got to get him in.
Next up, another youngster we're looking at is Lucas Bergvall, and Simon Jones from the Mail saying that Tottenham are looking to hijack Barcelona's attempts to sign 8.5 million rated wonder kid Lucas Bergvall, who has already made a senior appearance debut for Sweden. Sky Sports are saying Tottenham interested in Swedish wonder kid. Spurs want to beat the competition from Barcelona and other top clubs to make him part of their academy. New technical director Johan Lange is thought to be driving the Spurs recruitment. However, Fernando Polo, a Barcelona journalist, says in recent hours Tottenham have tried to recruit Bergvall, but the player's desire is clear, and that is to play for Barcelona.
It's hard to, when a team like Barcelona come calling for you, it's hard to reject them, especially for a young player. Apparently, he's a very talented central midfielder, can play in the number 8, 6 or 10, they're saying, very versatile. So definitely one. I mean, I don't know much about him. Obviously, having played a senior cap for Sweden at 17 shows the potential. And a centre mid is definitely a position we're looking at. Does he come into the first team at 17, 18 years old next season?
They're saying they're trying to recruit him for the academy.
So that makes more sense for him. But does he want to be part of an academy when he's playing senior football for Sweden? You know what I mean?
He's had one cap, so I don't know if that's like if he consistently gets called up or something.
I know, but if you've been called up for your national team, you don't want to be going back to under 23s, do you? You want to be playing regular football so you can kind of keep that position, or at least challenge for that. So,
do you think if he goes to Barcelona, he plays regular football,
no, I don't.
or he goes to La Masia?
I think he'll probably go out on loan, I would assume.
On loan.
Yeah, maybe out on loan. Maybe that's the case for Tottenham as well, but definitely one who's got clear potential here and a position that we need, but obviously not one who's going to be challenging first team anytime soon.
Kulusevski should be getting in these guys' ears. Both Swedish nationals coming through the ranks there. Kulusevski has obviously won Swedish Player of the Year the last couple of years. So, he should take them under their wing and say, look, Tottenham is the place for you.
Exactly. And Zlatan should warn them away from going to Barca.
Exactly. Let's talk about Conor Gallagher now, as Gary Jacobs says that Tottenham are seriously considering making a renewed approach to sign Conor Gallagher. Jacob Steinberg says that Tottenham are considering a move for Conor Gallagher this week. Chelsea want at least £50 million for him last summer, though that was too high for Spurs. However, Nazar Kinsella says that Gallagher is said to be very reluctant to leave Chelsea this month amid interest from Tottenham Hotspur. And has said, it's unlikely that new incomings, there are going to be any incomings, and I find it very unlikely that we're going to sign Gallagher, never mind in January in the summer as well.
Yeah, and as you say, I think it's one thing if Gallagher was more willing to come here and if he was like making things difficult for Chelsea, and maybe that could lower the price a bit and maybe that can make things moving. But I think he wants to stay at Chelsea. I think he definitely wants to be at Chelsea for that Carabao Cup final where he's very likely to start. And I think as well, with 2 days after the window, we're going to have to pay a big fee. And are we prepared to pay a big fee while Højbjerg is still here as well? I think that it was very much dependent on Højbjerg leaving the club, as we've said many times. Looks like he's staying. So if Gallagher signs, does that mean we're going to be pushing Skip and Højbjerg to reserves? Like there's going to be no place for them at all in this team. So I just don't see Gallagher signing while we've got Højbjerg and Skip here for the time being. There's way too many moving parts for this deal to be done in the last 2 days of the window for sure. I think in the summer we can revisit it. Maybe it's something to be done, but I don't think it's something that will be happening in the next 2 days. Yeah.
In terms of what could be likely as a transfer, I think this next one that we're going to talk about is probably the most likely, if any movement is going to happen, and that is Bryan Hill. As Will Unwin of The Guardian says that Bryan Hill is on Nottingham Forest lists of potential forward targets from now until the end of the window, and Gary Jacobs says that Brighton are currently in talks to sign Bryan Hill from Tottenham. So both of these are interesting in my opinion. I think if he was to go on loan to either of these teams, that gives him a small little glimmer of hope that he could come back to Tottenham and make something happen, but it also gives us a glimmer of hope to get a good fee in for him as well.
So it was Brighton and who? Nottingham Forest?
Yeah.
If I was him, I'd 100% go to Brighton. It's not even... I mean, I guess you could argue if he goes to Brighton, is his game time going to be more limited than Forest? But I don't know if that will, because...
They've got a lot of injuries there.
Who, Brighton?
Yeah, Ansu Fati's injured. Solly March is injured. They've got problems on the wing.
Yeah, I know. Matoma as well. Is he injured at the moment? Or is he away at the Asia Cup? I think he's injured as well. I think, for sure, if you're Bryan Hill... Look how Brighton play. You have to be jumping at the chance to go there. If he goes to Forest, he might get more game time, but is it gonna suit him? Is he gonna play to his strengths? Is he gonna be because you know how Forest like to play on the counter attack. It relies a lot on speed and physicality of your forward players. That's why Arioni does so well and Gibbs White does well. Elanga does well because they've got pace, they've got power, and Bryan Hill doesn't have that. So I don't know if he would be a success at Nottingham Forest. But Brighton is different. Possession-based football. He's going to get loads of the ball. He's going to get loads of opportunities to create chances and run at his fullback. And he's going to get coached by De Zerbi, who's done so well for his wingers during his time at Brighton. So if I'm Bryan Hill, Brighton is a phenomenal move if he can get there. And I think if there's any club in the Premier League right now where he could potentially shine, it would be a team like Brighton.
I totally agree with that, but I've just had a thought as well, because like, wasn't Nuno the manager when we signed Brian Hill when he first came? So obviously, if he wants to take him to Nottingham Forest, he must be a player that Nuno, very much believes in and thinks he can get the best out of. So, the manager at 2 Premier League clubs where they signed him. So maybe Nuno has a bit of a plan for Brian Hill.
Potentially. What I would say about that is he did play a bit under Nuno, mostly in the Conference League, if I remember. He didn't really know what his best position was. He kept moving him around. He played him centre mid once, I remember, played him on the right, played on the left, and never really gave him a run of games in the Premier League. It was only, I remember he started one game in the Carabao against Wolves, where
he played well, yeah.
And then he played a few games in the Conference League, but I don't think he got any starts in the Premier League, if I remember rightly. So,
to be fair, Nuno wasn't around for too long.
Yeah, he was around for 9 games. So, I guess he could have a plan for him, but if I'm Brian Hill, I think it's a no-brainer. You go to Brighton, but let's see. If he goes to Brighton, I'll be very intrigued to see how he gets on.
Yeah, I'll be intrigued at both moves, but yeah, I do think Brighton, in terms of stylistically, is better for him for sure. But let's finish off talking about Pape Sarr, as Senegal were knocked out the African nations last night. Senegal took the lead after 3 minutes, and they were leading all the way till the last few minutes of the game, where they gave away a penalty and Frank Kessié knocked it in, took the game to penalties. Pape Sarr actually did step up in the penalty shootout and took it really well, but unfortunately Senegal were knocked out. So Sarr will be on his way back to Tottenham, and Ange Postecoglou said the latest I heard is that he should be back tomorrow at some stage. Disappointed for him in Senegal from our side. He's a key player of the squad. And we'll have him back and should be available for Saturday. So it looks as though tomorrow will come a bit too soon for Pape, but it's going to be great to have him back for that Everton game.
Yeah, he was absolutely gutted, wasn't he? The scenes at the end of the game, he was in tears pretty much on the ground. Obviously, it was a major shock because Senegal are massive favourites going into this game. Ivory Coast didn't even thought they were out. They didn't even know they were
sacked their manager.
Sacked their manager. And look, they are the hosts, so you never know when you're playing the host, they can step up their game. And they kind of did that in the game. Although Senegal were the better side, Ivory Coast kind of found a way to stay in the game, only 1-0 down up until the latter stages, and ended up winning a penalty and winning the game on penalties as well. But Pape Sarr, I'm gutted for him because he's had a good tournament when he's been playing. He's been getting good reviews. I've been seeing from his performances out in the AFCON. And I think as well, I think Senegal won the last AFCON, didn't they?
Yeah.
And I think they would have expected to, get to the latter stages. So round of 16 is a very poor performance for them and the country. So whether he feels that responsibility of having let the country down, I hope not, because he's played well himself. But hopefully coming back to the environment of Spurs, where it's a family feel, everyone loves him. He's like everyone's little brother. Obviously, still no Son back there. So whether that makes an impact or not, we'll have to wait and see. But everyone loves Sonny. Everyone loves Pape. So I'm sure everyone will give him the confidence when he comes back, and hopefully he can hit the ground running. So it's good news for Tottenham, but I'm just gutted for him because you can see how much it meant to him.
Yeah, and I think it'll be the same for most players, to be honest, going out of an international tournament like that. But I have no doubt in my mind Pape will come back fit and firing, and I really want to see him in the starting lineup against Everton on Saturday, because him as a midfield option, he just gives that team so much more balance than what we're seeing at the moment, and he's so imperative to the way we're playing at the moment. So it's going to be great to have him back. And last but not least, in terms of the other AFCON and Asia Cup, Son and Bissouma both play tonight. Well, today, 4 o'clock is Heung-min Son and South Korea that take on Saudi Arabia. I think it's the last 16. We'll be doing a watch along on our Korean channel, so come over and join us for that one. And at 5 o'clock, Mali take on Burkina Faso in the AFCON. So we'll have to wait and see how Bissouma and Heung-min Son get on for their respective nations. But thank you everyone for joining us for the Tottenham update.